It feels good to focus on the end result. The endorphins are popping off when we're thinking about the home, the job, the money, the where we want to be. And it doesn't feel as good to imagine the process of each building block we're creating at a time throughout our journey. Welcome to the new studio, and welcome back to the Paint Method podcast. It has been a while, I know, but as you can see behind me, this is what we've been working on for the past, 6 to 8 months. But I feel like this has also been a lifetime in the making for this particular space. But I'm going to share more about this space later on. And by the way, if you go to our YouTube channel, if you're listening to this right now on your favorite podcast audio platform, go to YouTube. You can see what I'm talking about. And I will definitely be sharing more about this studio later on, but we won't get too much into it today. Also, now that we are finishing up this studio, that means that we're gonna have more podcasts and a lot more content in this space. I just can't wait to share more about it. So tune into either my Instagram, you can follow the journey on there at Garibaldi Arts, or follow me across platforms, or just hit that follow button or subscribe to hear more of these podcasts as we develop this process, bringing it to life. Which brings me to today's topic. We spend so much time and energy imagining the end result. And as I've been in this process, bringing the studio to life, and I had a little moment of inspiration as well, which I'll share in today's podcast, is I realize how important it is to focus and imagine the process and how that process unveils these building blocks that ultimately help us create our desired end result. We'll get into it. Let's get into this much awaited episode of the Paint Method podcast. Let's go. We are all on our paint journey, but where are we now? And where do we go next? This is how passion, action, intent, new, teach. This is the Paint Method. Welcome everybody. Wherever you're listening to this, whether it's on a drive in your car, or if you're, working out or in the studio creating, I just want to first say thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to these podcasts. And, I hope that you're getting some value out of it. There's a lot on my journey that that has worked out and a lot that hasn't. And I hope that through this paint method, it would just be a place where you can kind of help discover where you're at in your journey and hopefully inspire what to create next. And that's whether you're an artist, welcome to all the artists and creators out there, or whether you're doing something else on your journey. Either way, it has to be created. But let's get into this. So I mentioned that we spend so much time and energy focusing on the end result. Now, I don't blame you. I do the same. It feels so good to imagine the end result. Think about it. The end result of where we end up. Thinking about the imagining the end result of the dream job, or where you want to be in your career. Like you can sense it, you can feel it through your body, you can smell it, taste it, of where you want to end up. We imagine how much money is in our bank account. When we open up that bank app, we can imagine just a lot more zeros and numbers popping up than maybe we have now. And it just, in that imagination, it feels good. It's rewarding. We spend time imagining a new place to be in our health journey. I've been on that recently, just going through the process of just, working out more, eating better, you name it, all the above. And I've spent a lot of time imagining the end results of the weight that I want to be, the body shape, the activity level, you name it. We imagine the home that we eventually want to live in. A lot of us have this imagination or vision of our forever home. Maybe it's not in the next 10 years, maybe it's in 20. Maybe for some of you, you're already living in it now, which is incredible. Think about how long you imagined this and what it took to get there. All in all, we spend so much time and energy thinking about that end result. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that is the best place to start. And that's why I don't blame anyone for doing it. I do it myself. I love using my imagination to think about that end result. But that imagination of that place we want to end up is not how we grow. It is not how we even end up there. I know a lot of us spend time thinking about, well, if I just think about it, I'll manifest it and things in life will just happen. It's possible. I've had so many moments in my life where I was imagining something and starting to work on it, and then just through manifestation, an opportunity came that I couldn't explain how it ended up here, because it was just like an act of God. But what is the most practical way that we can all create that end result? How do we all get there? And so I started thinking about this because last night, on Saturday night, it's Sunday afternoon where I'm recording this, and last night I was at my daughter's musical theater showcase. So she does this musical theater where they do the actual plays, but she's part of this other sort of like master group where they hone their skills in, and they have sort of like these building blocks to musical theater. And it's from singing, dancing, the acting, the performance. And so last night was the big showcase of how far they've come on their journey over the past year. She goes, I don't know, 4 days a week, a couple hours a day. And when I go drop her off, I'm the parent sitting in the car for 2 hours. Although I did find a gym nearby, so I have been hitting the gym instead of sitting in the car watching YouTube videos or drawing on my iPad. But I've been showing up every day, and I don't get to see the end result until something like last night. I'm watching the showcase, and it wasn't just about watching her, which I was so inspired, so proud as a parent. I mean, just to watch her come out of her shell and perform, and also being a performer myself, I could not be more proud. But this is also what struck me, is they were showcasing students that had been part of this master program for 4 years, 8 years, 10 years. And some of these students were saying that, hey, I'm going off to college now. I'm going to go study theater, or I'm going to go be a civil engineer. I'm not even going to do theater. But I just wanted, and they came on stage and they shared sort of like one last performance, and they did these solo singing acts from various plays. And there were some people, actually all of them were incredible. And so you've got these students that put in 5, 8, 10 plus years into this program, and you see the results. You see the building blocks, or this particular building block, in action. So then I started imagining my daughter. She's at this beginning phase of this process. And so just to kind of, before I get to the point of this particular story, I started imagining my youth and these really important parts of my youth that ultimately became the most important building blocks for who I became. When I was my daughter's age, I started playing the trumpet. The school that I went to offered these music lessons, and I took them and I played the trumpet from 3rd grade to high school. And art was always there, but this was in addition to learning art and creating art. When I got to high school, they made me choose between music and art, and since I was much more confident in art, I thought, let's do that. I stuck with art. But that music building block came into play later on as I had to start creating mixes and having an understanding of musicality, creating mixes for my live shows. The other building block that I experienced in high school was getting into dance. I was in this hip hop dance group, actually several different ones. One of them was one right after high school called Boogie Monstars, and we were, it was a hip hop choreographed group. And normally we think about these things like I think you think about my daughter in this musical theater, and you think, okay, well, she's learning musical theater, she's going to go off and do that. She could, but it's not necessarily true. When I was playing music, playing the trumpet from third grade to high school, you think, okay, I'm going to pursue music, go off and do that. Or when I was dancing, although when I was dancing, I did think I was going to be a backup dancer for Justin Timberlake. I mean, we all have dreams. We could, dreaming is free. And I that's what I honestly thought. But what we don't emphasize or spend enough energy doing is imagining that each of our experiences are building blocks that are part of us imagining the process to create that end result. So I was thinking about my daughter last night and watching her, do these performances, singing, dancing, acting. And I wasn't just thinking about her doing musical theater later on. I was thinking about, wow, what building block is this? And what will she add that to later on? What other building blocks will she learn throughout school or through other life experiences that when she puts them together, they will shape who she becomes or what she does or makes her imprint on this world? And so before I move on with this story, I want you to imagine, what are some of the moments in life that have led up to where you are right now? And maybe at the time when you were doing them, you thought, okay, I'm playing baseball at a young age, I'm going to go and become a professional baseball player. Some people do that. But some people use that athleticism or the leadership or the experience as a building block to add to something else. Maybe growing up, you were just great with numbers. And you thought, okay, I'm great at math. I'm going to be a mathematician or a math teacher. Or maybe that's an important building block that you will add to another life experience that will ultimately shape who you become. We all have these building blocks that we're creating along the way based on our life experiences. And you'll miss them. You'll miss the fact that it's so important that we have these building blocks if you're spending so much time and energy focusing on the end result. It feels good to focus on the end result. The endorphins are popping off when we're thinking about the home, the job, the money, the where we want to be. And it doesn't feel as good to imagine the process of each building block we're creating at a time throughout our journey. Now, once we create these building blocks, now in my life, some important building blocks that I was developing over time before I became a performance painter, one of them was the obvious, it was art. It was a huge foundation, just being able to render ideas with tools that I had, whether it's pencil, pen, or paint. Music was another separate important building block, understanding musicality and the expression and appreciation of creating sounds from your imagination. Taking animation in high school, learning how to do video production and editing and lighting and storytelling, another very important building block. And I would say this other one, which may not seem as obvious, but growing up in my mom's hair salon, it's hard to believe because of my current haircut, but my original dream was actually to become a hairstylist. It was the family business. I thought, cool, art is cool, music is cool, but I can't actually make money doing this. I'm definitely just going to be a hairstylist or a hair colorist, whatever, I ended up being because of that life experience. But it was an important building block watching my mom run a hair salon, pursue a passion and create a business out of it. So identifying all these things. Now, once we have our building blocks, and I'll just use mine as an example, but I want you to imagine your building blocks. I want you to imagine these moments in life where you developed yourself in this skill set And maybe you didn't continue on to a professional setting in it, but it's important, it's part of you, it's there, let's set it down. And now I want you to imagine each of these blocks, maybe there's 4 or 5, maybe there's 20 of them. And now I want you to imagine reshaping them into something. Now, my building blocks, as I reshaped them together, I thought about what could they build? What could they help me become in this journey? I could have put them together and became an art teacher because of watching, my mom and the passions she had following this and wanting to bring that out in others, the teacher that I had in high school, and then pairing it with the skill sets that I had by this desire to learn, whether it was music or art or video production. Another shape that I could have put my building blocks into could have been a hair colorist. My girlfriend gets her hair done, pretty often. I think at least once a month or so. And she tells me how much these hair colors cost. And I'm like, I think that may still be a possibility of a career later on that I may consider. But you can make an incredible living by focusing on this hair colorist or hair styling. And so I thought, okay, I could have reshaped my blocks into that. I could have reshaped my blocks into becoming some sort of creative pastor. Faith is an important part of my journey, and it's been there in very significant times in my life, and really the times that I actually needed it as well. I mean, the times where I wasn't doing well, and my relationships weren't doing well, and that was part of it. But how can I use these skill sets to help people on their spiritual journey? Could have been reshaped into that. Or what I ultimately did first, which was just the first part of my journey, is I reshaped, put all those blocks together to build this painting rock star performer. And that is what I started my career doing. 2003, teaching myself this performance painting inspired by Denny Dent, learning how to perform, engage an audience, and just building that over time by using each and every single building block that I had learned along the way. And what's amazing is where I'm at now is, and I think I've done this several times throughout my journey, is I've taken those blocks apart, laid them out on the table, and have fitted them back together into different shapes. Like now, sharing these journeys through a podcast or a video, or finding ways to story tell, by reshaping it in this next phase in my life. And so think about that right now. And before I get into how we're going to imagine the process and not just the end results, is focus on imagining these important moments in life that create these building blocks. And if you haven't already, start thinking about how can I reshape them together to combine and collide passions or experiences to shape who I am or who I want to become. That is where the process starts. Now, as we move on, as we start to define our building blocks, now how do we imagine the process to get to our end result? This may seem counterproductive, but the first step is envisioning, having a clear vision of that end result. Right now, my clear vision is finishing the studio based on the plan that we put together. So I know exactly what I want it to look and feel like. And again, if you're listening to this, go to my YouTube channel. You'll see the under construction version of this studio. But now, once I've defined what the end result is going to be, now I'm breaking this down into days, weeks, months, and even years. Because even in the next weeks, as we complete this studio, the vision, the end result of this building, this space, still has to be worked on over years, which we'll continue to do and develop. But I'm imagining every step of the way in days, weeks, months, years. This is particularly important if you're on a health journey as well, because I mentioned earlier that I've been on mine, and having to imagine every single bite that I take or weight that I lift. It's so important to imagine this and break this down, the process, a day, week, month, or even when you get to that place, there's still years of maintaining and growing. The other part of how we're going to imagine the process is to start imagining combining your building blocks to shape who you want to ultimately become. And so part of this process is now imagining, retrospective, looking back on life. What are the experiences that I've had that I can pull onto the table? And now maybe you can actually write these down. You can cut out blocks, shapes, squares, put them on the table, write them out, and just reshape them in different orders. And maybe separately on a piece of paper, start writing down, what could these shapes become? Who could I become? And I would say for this last part is, as we imagine the process, it's going to take time. That our end results are nowhere near where we are right now. And to accept, as we imagine this process every step of the way, that it's going to require us to activate our work ethic, our discipline, every step of the way. Even along the way, even part of that process could be growing your network, people that you don't know yet, knowing that in the next year or so, I need to connect with X amount of people as part of the process, and it's going to take time. So wherever you are on your journey right now, before this podcast ends, imagine the different moments you've been in life and where you thought, I was going to go and become that thing because I had been doing sports for so long. And I thought I was going to be a professional athlete, but that's a block. It's an important one that you can still use somewhere else. But take that, compartmentalize it. We've got that. Thinking about all the other interactions or skill sets that you've had along the way that you can compartmentalize, put in, okay, this experience at this job or this experience with my family that I really enjoyed, I'm going to put that into a block. Start imagining those. And now this process, how do we piece this together? And what will those blocks, as we put them together, what will they help shape us to become? And here's the thing, you create a shape like I did 2003, I started as a performance painter. I've broken down that shape at least 2 solid times since then, broken it down and reshaped it to evolve and grow. I can't take away my life experiences. They are there. All I can do is reorganize them and pivot and reshape and sculpt this new version of what I wanted to become. And now, as we build this studio, I'm reshaping it. I'm putting it together. Like, what could this be? How could we give value and educate? And how could we create content in a way? And I'm imagining this process. I'm going to reshape these blocks, and we're going to start creating day one right now with this podcast in this studio. And I hope that if it's not today, down the line, come back to this podcast. And I hope that this can help you envision. I want to encourage that end result. Just don't spend as much time and energy imagining it, and start to put the energy into imagining the process, bringing these blocks to life and shaping who you become. Thank you for joining for this podcast, The Paint Method. There will be a lot more. I'll break down real quick what the paint method means to me. Is paint represents our journeys, and it represents mine, where I started with passion, these particular thing that I enjoy, and then I started putting action behind it, bringing it to life. Along the way, finding intent and purpose, putting that behind it, adding new situations that help me grow. And right now, where we're at right now is to teach and to lead. And there's been moments where I had to go back to P, and P wasn't just passion, it was pivot. It was how do we change? And this paint journey, we're all on it. And I want this to be a place where we can be reminded of, look, let's find out where we are, and then let's create what's next. If you're enjoying these podcasts or these videos, please consider hitting that follow button on whatever audio platform you're listening to this on, or if you're watching this on YouTube, just consider hitting that subscribe button, and then you can follow me across social platforms at Garibaldi Arts. Thank you so much for joining. My name is David Garibaldi. Welcome to the new studio. This is the paint method. Peace.